Welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad you came back to watch some more PowerShell videos. I hope you're learning a lot. And if there's a specific topic you would like me to touch on, please either leave a comment down below or hit me up on on Twitter or LinkedIn or something and send me a message to let me know which PowerShell topics you would want to hear about. Right now I've got a list that I've come up with of stuff that I wish I would have known when I was starting out. Also some new things that are coming out as we speak. I'm also following those topics and putting out videos. So with that being said, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of these videos that I'm producing. But for today, we are going to talk about a topic that's kind of new to me. And I say kind of new because I mean, it's been out since PowerShell 7 has come out, and I've been using PowerShell 7 since its pre-release, I believe, beta version, something like that. However, I've not been put in a situation where I needed to use this specific tool. And the tool I'm talking about is the Ternary Operator. The term Ternary Operator, if you're a developer, you've probably heard about it. It's in other languages and things like that. Myself, I'm not a developer. I'm a simple former sysadmin and now a cybersecurity professional doing all kinds of things and trying to bring PowerShell along with me as I go. And so with that being said, the ternary operator, all it really is it's a simplified way of writing a if-then statement. And I say a simple one because you know if you've done any type of programming or scripting, your if statements, if you started doing multiple nested if statements, it can get deep and get kind of confusing. And a lot of times when you're just on the command line trying to parse through some things, you just need a quick, hey, if this is true, I need you to do this, else go ahead and skip it, right? And that's what this ternary operator does. Our friend Jeff Hicks, and if you're not familiar with who Jeff Hicks is, he teamed up with Don Jones and they wrote these wonderful books, Learn PowerShell in a Month of Lunches. If you don't have a copy of these, you really need to get some. I've read through mine. I continue to use mine. They're great. They're just great reference materials. There's tasks in there you can do to help improve your PowerShell tools or your PowerShell skills as well. But with that being said, Jeff Hicks has actually wrote this really great blog on the PowerShell 7 ternary operator. And right here in his first little statement, he's got the basic command of what it looks like. So all we're going to do is we're going to create some condition, right? Does A equal 5? Is A greater than 5? Whatever the condition is, you're going to put it there. Then you're going to put a little question mark. The question mark says, test this condition. If the condition is true, we're going to run this command. And right after the command, you're going to have a colon, which the colon really stands for if this condition is false, run this statement. So basically what it looks like is if this statement is true, run this, else run this. And this is kind of what it looks like on the command line. And what he has here is another variable, built-in variable that the PowerShell team has given us. Since Windows 7 is the cross-platform shell for all the operating systems, it's a simple way to test which operating system you're on. So if you're trying to build a cross-platform tool, you've got this is Windows, is Mac, and is Linux test. And it evaluates the true or false. So you don't have to go build your own test anymore. So what this one says is, are we on Windows? Is what it says. If we are, go ahead and click OK. If we're not OK. That means we're on Linux or a Mac or something. Depending on your feelings, you might be feeling, yay, it's okay, I'm on Windows, or you might be feeling, oh, I'm not okay because I am on Windows. So whatever your preference is. Me, as long as I'm in PowerShell, I'm happy. Anyway, he kind of goes in and talks about, you know, how this thing operates and things like that. We're not going to dig into his blog too much. What we're going to do is we're going to get into the code and start playing around with it. So what we're going to do is, what I've got here is I've got 3 shells open. This first shell is a Linux machine, so I am not in PowerShell either. So if I do uname, you will see that I am in Linux. And if I go to my second shell here, you'll see that I'm in PowerShell 7.1.1. But just to be sure, PS version table. There we go. As you can see, it's still 7.1.1. And here I've got my regular old PowerShell 5.1. I've already ran this command, so you can see it right here. Right, 7.1. And I just want to do is Windows. It's so in 5.1 the is Windows is not there. So we can do let's do a equals 5. So now we have a equals 5. So let's do the condition being let's do $a dash eq 5 question mark. We're going to do right tac host a is equal to 5. Let's go ahead and close that up. And then we're going to, if it's false, we're going to write host, no, write host well, it really does not want me to write tac host a is not equal to 5. Close that and close that, and we hit enter, and we get all kinds of errors because it doesn't, PowerShell 5 does not know how to handle all this. So let's take this statement right here, copy that. Let's go over here to PowerShell 7. Let's do the same thing. $a equals 5. So now we do have an a, and it is equal to 5. So if I paste that other statement where I'm doing a comparison of does a equal 5, it should translate to true. So a is equal to 5. What if we make a equal to 7? Right? So now let's hit that a is not equal to 5. So that's the basics of how this ternary operator works. As you can see, when a was equal to 5, we ran this first command. When a was not equal to 5, we wrote this command. So you can kind of see how this ternary operator would work if you're on the command line and you're parsing through, maybe you're parsing through Active Directory and you say, hey, get AD user, and you start filtering, and maybe you need to do, if this user is this, then print it out, or whatever the case may be. But we're going to go a step further. We're going to play with the $ is Linux. As you can see, this says I am on a Windows machine, because whenever I asked it, am I on Linux, it gave me false. So let's do a $sign is Windows. True. Again, another way you can see that I'm not lying. I am on a Windows machine. My other tab over here, PWSH. Excuse me. I am in a PowerShell now. Now if I do $sign is Windows, false. $sign is Linux, true. Okay, so now we have this test. So what if I do $sign is Linux, I want you to write host, we are on a Linux machine. Go ahead and close that up. If we're not, I want you to host, we are not, let's capitalize that, make it more impactful, not on a Linux machine. Let's make it even more impactful. Let's go ahead and do background color yellow, and then the foreground color red. Right? We are on a Linux machine, so we're good to go. What if we change this to Windows? What would happen if we did the test for Windows? We are not on a Linux machine, and I misspelled machine. There we go. Now we're not on a Linux machine. There we go. So let's take the same thing, copy. Let's bring that over here to our Windows machine. We'll see that it operates just the same way. Let's go ahead and change out the Linux for Windows. Or how about we are not on how about we must be on a Linux machine. How about that? All right. We change this to Windows. Oh, we are on a Windows machine. But if we change this to Linux, is Linux. Actually, let's change this verbiage to Windows. Ah, we must be on a Windows machine because we tested for Linux. Alright, so I mean that's pretty much the basics of the ternary operator. So what does this mean? What are we replacing? So let's take this line right here. Basically, this one line of code replaces this. Let me just pull this over. It'd be easier to show it this way. Alright, so here I have my VS Code. This is kind of the command that we just got done playing with. And here's what it replaces. If Linux, write this. Else, write this. Right? It's pretty much exactly what we did. If I were to highlight this, we run this. This is not a Linux machine. But if I run this one, this is not a Linux machine. Right? So this one line of code replaces this 10 lines of code with spaces, right? So that's what we're replacing. But what if, so when I was playing around with this, I was like, I wonder if we could do nested ternary operators. And it turns out you can. If I run this code right here, right, and I hit that little button right there, it says we are on a Windows machine. So what am I doing here? Let me go ahead and just copy this out. Let's move this out of the way. Let's come back here to the command line so we can see what we're doing. Alright, we're going to clear that. We're going to paste that. So what I'm doing here is, are we on a Linux machine? If we are, write this. If we're not, are we on a Mac machine? If we are, write this. If we're not, are we on a Windows machine? If we are, write we're on a Windows machine. If we're not, write I have no clue on what OS we are on. And let's put some emphasis on it, right? So let's test see what this does. Ah, we're on a Linux. So if we move over here to Windows, let's clear that. Alright, so now we should be running this statement because we know we're on a Windows machine. So let's go ahead and hit enter. We are on a Windows machine. Now, let's test if we're on a Mac OS. It still says we're on a Windows machine. Alright, what if we tested, let's do this. Let's say we were on some sort of other operating system that could run PowerShell. Not 100% sure what that would be, but just to prove that we're going to run that final else statement, this statement right here, we are going to, remember I have a equals 5. Remember earlier I created the a variable. Maybe I created it in this shell. But if a equals 5, if that equates to whether it equates to true or false, it's not going to match any of the other true statements. So it's going to have to default to this one. Right? So let's go ahead and hit enter. It says we're on a Windows machine. What does a equal? A equals 7. That's interesting. How did I get that to test out earlier? Somehow I got that to test out. Let's see. I know what's going on here. So it took me a minute, and some of you guys probably figured it out as I was going through it. But I was running a test just to make sure I was getting a false statement. So A is great. A is a greater than 7, which turns out false. So what we're doing is we're running this condition. It's not true, so it's testing this. That's not true, so it's testing this. And what happens when we test if it's Windows? It comes out true, so that's why it's writing this host. So what we need to do in order to run this, we need to change this test. All right. So let's do, we could do that, and then we could change this is Windows. Let's go ahead and just change that to Linux again. Right? So there we go. Now we have no clue on what OS we're on. So that's a little oversight on on me. But now that that's why we run these little tests, right? We got to figure out how we're going to trigger the trues and the falses. But that would be what I would call a nested ternary operator. So what does this replace? Well, let me just bring over my VS Code again, because it'd be easier to show it this way than it is to type it on the command line. So here was our nested ternary operator right here, right? So we had the several different tests. So this is what it's actually replacing, right? Is it Linux? True, we're going to write that. Else, we're going to write this. So if we were to run this one, it comes back we are on a Windows system, right? But remember, if we go ahead and change this to is $is Linux again, if we were to run this again, we'll get the same results as we did on the command line. So I have no clue, right? So this 10 lines of code is replaced by this one line. So that's kind of what we're doing. However, if you're going to run nested if statements, I would probably do something like this. This is what we call a switch parameter. Basically, it's going to take x. If x matches one of these, then it's going to write this out. So if I do Mac is OS, it says this is a Mac because X equals Mac. If let me get that back. If X ends up being Windows OS, we do this, right? And bam, I have no clue because I misspelt Windows. Now let's try it. Bam, we're on a Windows machine. And as you can see, I'm not going to demo the default whenever it doesn't equate. When it doesn't equate to Windows, this, or this, then it has the final else statement, the last thing it's going to run if it doesn't ever equate to true. It's going to equate to this. I have no clue on what system we're on. I'm going to do a video later to go in more depth on the switch. But just know this is probably, at least inside of a script, this is going to be the preferred method because it makes it easier to read and understand. This could get a little confusing if you're trying to read through it. And this one here, if you're trying to read through it in a script, is definitely confusing. But if you're on the command line and you need a quick way to do it, this would probably be a good way to do that. A one-liner if then, else then statement, right? So that's the ternary operator in a nutshell. If you have any questions or any comments or anything, please leave those in the comments section below. And if you want to hear more and learn more about PowerShell, I've got some good ideas coming up. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, and don't miss out on any of the new videos that I've got coming out. I'm sure you'll be able to learn something. I'm always learning something, and I've been doing PowerShell for many years now. So until then, I'll see you in my next video.